So what we're going to talk about today is a success story for a local government customer modernizing their GIS using the ArcGIS platform. Just a curious show of hands, how many folks here are with local government? All right, very good. Well, you're in the right place. Hopefully, everybody gets something out of this. So Ben and I are going to talk a little bit about the company. We're going to talk about the history of Manassas Park with their GIS systems before we took over, and then we're going to talk about what we've done to integrate Esri solutions. And for a small city, really worked with a very visionary team there that didn't have a lot of GIS experience, but has embraced GIS in a way that is making them a real showcase and a real example in the region of how to use and implement and expand your GIS program. So we went through the bios there. Chris, Ben, I'm based out of the DC area. That's where Blue Raster's main office is. And Ben is based out of Charlotte. I've been with the firm for about 9 years now. So just real quickly about Blue Raster, we are specialists in GIS consulting. Our main focus is on interactive web and mobile mapping applications, the design, development, and maintenance of those. Like the previous presentation, we do a lot with field GIS workflows, so Survey 123, workforce, field maps, and bringing all that into ArcGIS dashboards, experience builder applications, hub sites, and story maps. We've got a cloud DevOps team that is helped us earn the Esri Cloud Services specialty. So anything with on-prem or cloud for enterprise, we can help with architecting and building that out and maintaining. And then we've just got a great team of GIS and Python analysts that can help with data management, visualizations, and we do support staff augmentation as well. We're a small company of only about 30 folks, but this entire case study around Manassas Park is fully staff aug. They don't have any GIS team after even 3 years of working with them. I should mention we're an Esri Gold business partner as well, and our capstone partner, meaning that we've been a partner for at least 20 years. So we really value our relationship with Esri, and they're a big part of the success here with Manassas Park. Blue Raster's been working with state and local government customers for, since our founding 20 years ago. Kind of said most of these things already, but, to date, we're actively working with dozens of state and local government customers all around the country. Just a couple examples of some representative clients here, including our friends here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Harnett County as well, but folks all over. Oh, sorry about that. All right, so Ben's going to talk a little bit about our timeline with Manassas Park, and then we'll get into some of the tech and the implementations that we've done. I guess I'm talking about this one. So just a little bit about Manassas Park. Outside of the DC area by about 40 minutes, it's a very small city, just 0.3 square miles. 17,000 folks at the last census, but they're around 20,000 now, and they're a growing city. They've got a couple parks, a public pool. This is a great shot of the brand new city hall. I was just there a couple weeks ago, and about 4,400 residential homes to go along with that, around 20,000 total population. So Blue Raster's role with Manassas Park. So we started in 2020. This was right as COVID was starting. Manassas Park had been using a kind of third-party, legacy, not well-known GIS provider for many years. Some of their main complaints around that was not a lot of innovation coming into the technology, not a lot of support when things broke and needed to be fixed. They were looking for something that was a little bit more current. They liked the workflows that they had, and they were looking for a solution that could support them on a new platform. So the team at Esri was working with Manassas Park. They came up with a geospatial roadmap, and they brought Blue Raster in as a service provider, being a local firm, to be able to help build out that, initially looking at, kind of a 3-year plan, and then just seeing where it went from there. So we just kind of wrapped up year 3, and, the future is very bright, for Manassas Park as their GIS continues to expand. Their departments were using a series of, viewer templates. They were all, very similar, but they were populated with data that was relevant to the department. Anytime that they wanted to make updates to those or, have new layers added to those viewers, they needed the help of that, other GIS vendor, and that was very hard to get. So again, they were looking for something that was a little bit more responsive, even something that they could get in and do themselves with a little bit of training. So what we did is we came in, we got them set up with ArcGIS Online. They had about 200 different shape files that we kind of cleaned up, helped with the attribution, and got those published, tagged, grouped into the ArcGIS Online organization, and then started meeting with the departments individually and helping to understand where could we get in there and start making a better use of their data, expanding the use, internal workflows, public-facing viewers, and, again, training and documentation. So that really kind of happened in year one. And Ben will go into a little bit more detail here about the overall timeline since our start with Manassas Park, and then we'll jump into some of the cool tech.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about our full timeline here, starting with some context about our the assistant city manager that we worked with at the time, named Chris Himes at Manassas Park. He was really the champion of GIS as this centralized data hub, and using that to improve transparency and collaboration both internally and for public-facing applications. So in July of 2020, that's about the time that Manassas Park approached Esri and was able to get set up with an ArcGIS Online organization. They utilized CARES funding, so we all know where that came from, what was going on in the world at that time. So from there, they needed a partner to help implement all of this new technology and use it to its fullest potential. So Esri, through our partnership with Esri, we were connected with Manassas Park as the service implementation provider. So the first step there in December 2020 was to migrate all of that data out of this legacy GIS platform. So that was in the form of, like I said, many shape files that we cleaned up, published to their ArcGIS Online account. And from there, that's when we needed to kind of get back to baseline of where they were with their legacy provider. But we're going to do that with configurable apps in the ArcGIS Online environment. So we stood up viewers that got us back to baseline, so they weren't missing anything in the day-to-day operations. But what it did allow for is more of that innovation that they were missing, and it allowed for more iteration on a quicker timeline. Of note, around this time, a little bit after into 2021, Esri announced the release of ArcGIS Velocity. We're going to get into that later. That's important. They did have the ability at the time to see, their fleets live in a viewer. So this was of interest to them, especially because it was ArcGIS Online based, and they went the ArcGIS Online route. So after that, we began prototyping internally to see if this implementation would work for them. And it turns out it was going to be a great fit. So we worked to implement an integration for both the AVL for police and the computer-aided dispatch through Velocity, using some of the feeds, leveraging the Azure Cloud Logic apps and cloud functions to feed this live AVL data and their dispatches to a map, so they could have a situational awareness dashboard and see where the calls were coming in and where their vehicles were that responded. So that was such a success that Esri was kind enough to publish a case study about this. We can share that with you guys later, but it just goes to show that when you have a champion of GIS and a strong service provider, you can easily go from GIS being an afterthought to GIS being a focal point, becoming a leader in the small government space. So further integrations were then developed to save time and further tie in GIS to all of their systems. So we're going to talk about some of those in a little bit, but we integrated with the county level EMS dispatch. We did some automation around the reporting, and then we could calculate average dispatch times or response times. We also then expanded the use of real-time GIS. So if anyone's familiar with GeoTab, the Public Works Suite implemented GeoTab, and that was a very quick implementation into some of the available slots in Velocity. So now they have both Public Works and police AVL data that is available in their dashboards and viewers. And we continue to develop automation. So their CAMA system, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but reducing time for manual processes to update their parcels to clicking a button and posted Python report. So going into, where we are today, these enhancements and new projects will continue, and Manassas Park continues to have buy-in with GIS and having GIS as a focal point, to the point where we now have a GIS committee meeting every month. We are still the GIS staff for Manassas Park, but it's to the point now where all of these departments are coming in and buying for our services because they realize the value, and they have to get prioritized. Now there's a line, so the ones that got in early were lucky. Yeah, and like I said, the growth of GIS in Manassas Park was pretty significant. So I think we migrated, about 100 layers initially. We're now close to 200. They've got configurable apps of multiple types, dashboards, experience builders, etc., in at least 5 departments. 46 web maps, and over 6.5 million features created from that real-time GIS and Velocity, and that number continues to grow. You can see here just an example on the right of one of those dashboards showing some active calls going on, active units out there, and where those things are popping up on the map, so they can more effectively dispatch their resources. I think Chris is going to take you on a deep dive into our Velocity deployment.
All right, thank you. How many folks here know what ArcGIS Velocity is? Okay, excellent. So Velocity is kind of the counterpart, maybe, or the other option for GeoEvent, which is more of a server deployment, requires a few more components, whereas Velocity is service as a system. It sits with ArcGIS Online, and so for a lot of organizations that are choosing between the two, that may be a better option. For Manassas Park, that was absolutely the route that they were looking to go. So, as Ben said, Velocity kind of came out right around the time we were starting to talk with Manassas Park about this. And so making the move to Velocity, it was a lot of steps. It required a lot of scoping. It was our first time sort of standing this up. We stood this up internally first. We did a lot of internal testing. Because this was for the Manassas Park Police Department, they did not want anything that wasn't a near final kind of signed off on implementation on their own server. So everything was in a Blue Raster environment, and we worked very closely with police, with IT at Manassas Park to make sure that things were exactly what they were looking for. And while that was going on, Manassas Park was going through the procurement with Esri to get Velocity ready to go when we were going to make that cutover. So once they had that procured, we got everything implemented in Manassas Park's Azure and ArcGIS Online environments. And then we had our very exciting go live date where, IT, the police, city manager were all a part of, a large call to kind of show off what we were able to do and kind of confirm that this was everything that they were hoping for. So Velocity in its base deployment comes with a certain number of feeds. And so with the police department, just to start, we kind of had 2 feeds that were being taken up by that. It was the actual, real-time APL, the fleet moving around there on the map in real time, but then also the historic information and the analytics taking up a second of those 10 feeds. As Ben mentioned, we then did integration with their computer-aided dispatch. So that allowed us to have a dashboard that had the county or the city boundary, the police fleet moving around in real time, and then calls coming in and being symbolized as they were either open or recently closed. And the closed would stay on the map for up to 24 hours, and then everything kind of filtered into a historical dashboard where you could filter, generate a report for the past week, the past month, past quarter, whatever the city was looking for. So we started with the police, and then this graphic's a little outdated. We then, as Ben said, integrated the public works fleet as well. And so that now brings us up to 6 feeds that we are using in Velocity. The public works is using a different provider. They're using Geotab devices in their vehicles. So again, the ability for Velocity to integrate with multiple different inputs and feeds after getting it initially set up for the police department was very seamless. So this is a viewer now that shows both the police and the public works all on one city dashboard. Naturally, this is for internal use at the city. and for the police department. But they're able to symbolize public works is made up of many different things on here. General services, the public works themselves, parks and recreation, and then kind of, community development, community services as well. So really at any kind of given point, somewhere around 50 to 60, active vehicles that are online and moving around here on the screen. And then again, you can see the open cat calls as well, symbolize their red. It's red points. So two different inputs: geotab, cradle point, for the different departments. And again, all this being historically tracked with velocity. Like GeoVent, you can set up, some pretty fun interactions like geofencing with the police vehicles. You're able to find and get notifications if vehicles are exceeding a certain speed for a certain period of time, or if they're going outside of the boundary, if they're idling, for a longer than expected time at a certain place. All those things are configurable, as of course are the kind of historic tracks, and being able to create a very interesting kind of heat map of, where the fleet is over an extended period. And as Ben also mentioned, this was featured as an Esri case study. One of the, I think, kind of first, deployments of Velocity when this came out in late 2021. And Blue Raster is also featured as an Esri real-time service provider. So the ability to provide solutions in Velocity and also GeoVent for our local government customers.
I'm going to take us home here with two more examples of integrations and automation that have solved some long-standing pain points for Manassas Park. The first one being their CAMA system, so their computer-aided mass appraisal system, and how that ties into their parcel data. So traditionally, quarterly exports from CAMA were provided by the tax assessor's office, and that would update their legacy viewer. But that process would take, a day to a day and a half of labor. So someone would have to use those records that were exported to manually update these parcels. What we were able to do, because of the decision to go to GIS Online, was develop a posted Python notebook that essentially automated that entire manual process. So this process cut down that manual labor from, 8 to 12 hours to, 30 minutes to an hour. We're clicking the button. The script is doing what it's supposed to do. It's looking for the exports from CAMA in the same place every time. And that's just one example of how ArcGIS Online and posted notebook model can let folks at Manassas Park do some of this work even without direct assistance from the Raster. So that's an easy win, low hanging for them to save some time. And finally, we're going to talk about the integration with the county level fire and EMS dispatching. So in this Prince William County where Manassas Park resides, a lot of the dispatching is done at the county level. And typically, there used to be exports, 6 times a day. The data was hard to get. It was in tabular format. What we were able to do was set up a kind of headless email account with Manassas Park IT. We're getting those exports automated 6 times daily to that email address using Azure Cloud Functions and Logic Apps again to ingest those attachments, interpret them. We're also geocoding the results, and that is feeding the dashboards here, so you can see what's going on with dispatch, and then with that we were able to do additional analysis using Arcade to calculate average response times, dispatch times, things like that. So this has been really helpful and really insightful. Solves a long-standing problem where this data was typically really hard to access, and now it's right here all in one place with an ArcGIS Online dashboard. So with that, what's next for Manassas Park? Like Chris mentioned, this was a 3-year engagement, but we're kind of wrapping up here at the end of 3 years. And I think because of the early championing of GIS by Chris Himes and the obvious buy-in from departments, now that things have been stood up and running for a while, I think we're going to continue to provide support and services for Manassas Park as they continue to think of new ideas and projects and improvements for all of these all of these different viewers and applications. Some of those might be a code enforcement workflow. So something like, you know, reporting various code violations around town, tracking those, making sure those are taken care of. We do want to stand up more open data and expand the Masses Park hub page for public consumption. That's going to be a big initiative coming up. And then capital improvement plan. So this is more on the print cartography side, but improving some mapping with all of this new data and this ecology for trails and parks and things you might see, in real life out there and not on the computer screen. And finally, yeah, we're going to continue to provide the same support we have in the past. This model seems to work for them, where we are their entire GIS staff, and we can train them on certain workflows, but ultimately we're going to be the experts for them, just at an arm's length away, and provide excellent services to keep them as a leader for small government in this area. So with that, we're going to wrap up. Does anyone have any questions?
For the camera automation, you said it went from a day and a half process to an hour, half hour to an hour. And they updated it previously each quarter. Do they update it like nightly now?
No, the exports are still quarterly, but when we receive them, that process is now reduced. But that's a good thought. Maybe they do want to update it more frequently, but I guess that would depend on how often the tax assessor wants to do that too.
Any more questions? All right, thank you, Chris and Ben.
All right, thank you.